Logan, zip it. Good morning, Megan. Okay, so we're going to go to modules, guys, as we do each morning. And we're going to finish up the little bit that we didn't finish with the battles of Lexington and Concord, okay? So, where did that go? All right, Canvas, I need you to wake up. So go down to Friday and click on Battles of Lexington and Concord, text source 3 and 4. Does everybody see that? Battles of Lexington and Concord, text source 3 and 4 under Friday. And I'm apparently pocket dojoing. I guess it's better in pocket texting and calling. Okay, so everybody clicked on that and hopefully Canvas doesn't stall on us. Yay, it's working. Yay, it's a working kind of day. And the words are tiny. If anybody has a microscope. Yes, we're about to have a weekend. Let me give you a heart attack. Dare to go to sleep in my class. I will wake you up with a heart attack. Sound good? Okay. Make sure you have your paper pack. And we are on Battles of Lexington and Concord on the back of the page that we were on yesterday. We did the front yesterday, right? So we're doing the back of the page today. The back says, based on source 3, what was the outcome of the battles of Lexington and Concord? That's what we're working on first this morning, okay? Good morning, by the way, Megan.
Good morning.
Row. Folder hit the floor. Oh, it just keeps getting worse. I like that Christmas artwork. Whoever gave you that picture for you to color, pretty cool teacher. It must be to make up for the fact she makes you write a lot of paragraphs. Okay, other than Logan that's over there dropping every paper he possibly can, is everybody else ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Bless you. I'm going to do what I did yesterday and read it myself because I'm a loudmouth and I think everybody can hear me. Yes? I'm not quite as loud as Miss Ford and I think everybody's okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Don't lose that Boston Tea Party and Massacre page because that's worth 12 points, okay? But I want everybody paying attention. That way you can answer questions. Got it? I don't do it often, but sometimes I get participation points. Keep that in mind. So I need everybody participating when I ask questions. Got it?
Okay.
I just noticed Joanna's gone.
Yeah.
She's not absent very frequently. She said she went over here today. So she was doctor's appointment then. Okay. Aftermath of Lexington and Concord. The colonists did not show great marksmanship that day. What does marksmanship mean?
Something.
My oldest son, Adrian, has fabulous marksmanship. They almost made him a sharpshooter. What is marksmanship?
Great things.
Great things, great something. Marksmanship means accuracy with a gun. Adrian was almost listed as a sniper because he had more accuracy at distance and close up than anyone before him, I think, for 80 years or something, some kind of thing on this one particular test. Now, granted, when they're testing someone's shooting ability, they're going to put them through a whole bunch of tests. But this one particular test, he outshot anybody for accuracy for 80 years. And his bosses were like, holy cow, you just outdid all of our bosses on that particular test. Now, that isn't saying on all the tests, but that particular one. Marksmanship is accuracy with the gun. So the colonists did not show great marksmanship that day, means they weren't very accurate. That's not good, is it? Because that implies the other side was, which tends to lead to lots of, if the other side is really accurate with a gun and you're not, what does that lead to?
Death.
Death. Yes, Kayla. Armita's room. As many as 3,500 militiamen firing constantly. Militiamen would be patriots. For 18 miles, only killed or wounded roughly 250 redcoats.
Ew.
So 3,500 patriots shooting. Only killed or wounded 250 British. That's not real good, guys. That's really, really bad. Compared to about 90 killed and wounded militiamen. Nevertheless, they proved they could stand up to one of the most powerful armies in the world. Let me add this a little bit at that time. Okay. News of the battle quickly spread, reaching London on May 28, 1775. By the following summer, a full-scale war of independence had broken out. Okay, so that blank, based on source 3, what was the outcome of the battles of Lexington and Concord? Okay. How many pencils have you? Just one? Okay. It's the beginning of your school year, so I'm going to switch off to some. Everybody at the beginning of the school year started off with 5 because they gave us their pencils. So everybody started off with 5. So I'm starting off the same. Outcome means like an ending, a result. So an outcome for Adrian working hard is going to be his college degree and graduating with first lieutenant status and a fairly good military paycheck. And then he's going to go on with experience and have an easier time getting a good job. That's an outcome for him from hard work. Michaela.
Isn't outcome like the word
Like the word what?
cause?
No. Cause is kind of what goes into something. So the cause of Adrian having his outcomes is hard work and dedication to making his goals. The outcomes are his goals. The outcomes are graduating with a much better GPA than he was having at first, because he wasn't doing real well at first. Graduating at first lieutenant status, graduating and having a paycheck because it'll be first lieutenant, graduating with skills that employers want. Those are outcomes. So causes are kind of things that go into a system. Outcomes are things that come out of a system. Does that make sense? So you could think, if you think of the anywhere carts, cause would be the plug going into the anywhere cart. So it's electricity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outcome is that your computer has electricity, that it has power for you to be able to use all day long. See the difference? Kind of a ingoing and outgoing thing. Kind of opposites. Maya, is today a better day? All right, guys, let's go on to source 4. Come on, you can do it, computer. All right. The Declaration of Independence. Oop, a little too far. Yes. No, this is not the end of what we're doing. There's another whole lesson on the Declaration of Independence. It'd be great if my computer woke up and, do what I wanted it to do with me. It'd be fabulous, in fact. Okay, blurry, but it's there. No glasses are going to straighten that out. All right, is everybody ready to go on to source 4? Everybody good? All right. Source 4. Even after the initial battles in the Revolutionary War broke out, few colonists desired complete independence from Great Britain. And those who did, like John Adams, were considered radical. Did you guys study John Adams in Miss Daniels' class? What was his job?
Oh, I didn't study.
What did he do? Anybody know?
Like arguing.
Melanie? What? He's a lawyer, yes. And he wasn't well liked by a lot of people. He actually aggravated people. But in some things, he would say, he would back up some things British, and in other things, he would back up the autonomy, the independence of America. So he would aggravate American colonists, but he always would prove everything logically and with law. So he was very much the voice of reason. And he would frustrate people because he wouldn't bow to propaganda. Remember how we read yesterday Paul Revere made an etching on silver that 2 days ago. Boston Massacre was started by the British.
Mhm.
Who actually started the Boston Massacre? Who was it actually started by? By the Patriots, teenage boys that were heckling the British. They threw the snowball, right? And they were irritating them with words before that, right? So it wasn't truly started by the British. It was other things they were doing to heckle the British first. I mean, yes, the gunfire was from the British, but there were things that preceded that gunfire, right? But that's not how John Revere portrayed it. And Paul Revere was like an early form of social media. Make sense? They didn't have internet back then. They didn't have TV. So what they did have was a form of, I guess you could say, comics. There were drawings that they could make and print lots of copies. And Paul Revere did an etching. That's what he did. And the etching showed the British, well, you saw the picture, showed the British just waylaying the Americans. But the picture that showed all the gunfire made it look like they're taking out hundreds of people. But how many people died? How many people died in the Boston Massacre? No, Boston Massacre. How many people died? 5. 5 people died. But that's not what that drawing made it look like, did it? The drawing made it look like just, there had to have been dozens or 100 people dying from that picture. So that picture is what you're going to learn this term when you're older. It's called propaganda. Social media is the same way. It makes things look different from what the reality is. Okay? And John Revere had done that. John Adams didn't go for propaganda. He went by the rule of law. He went by common sense. He went by logic. By arguing, yes, like those debates that you guys did.
We're doing another one today.
Coolness. Okay, so John Adams was considered radical. Things changed over the course of the next year. However, as Britain attempted to crush the rebels with all the force of its great army. In his message to Parliament in October 1775, So this is a year after the battles of Lexington and Concord. King George III railed against the rebellious colonies and ordered the enlargement of the Royal Army and Navy. News of his words reached America in January 1776, strengthening the colonists' cause and leading many to abandon their hopes of reconciliation. So after the battles of Lexington and Concord, the Americans had hopes that they could reconcile with Britain. Instead, King George got angrier and wanted to send more British into the colonies. And the Americans, more Americans became angry with King George. And there's nothing like getting people to band together, like a common hatred for something or somebody else. So, do you remember when all of us were stuck at home with COVID in the early days of it? March, April. Remember that?
Maybe.
And everybody was kind of scared and upset with being stuck at home, right? So while we were all home, we all shared a common cause, okay? Fear and a little bit of anger, right? So even though we were at home, we saw a lot of commercials, especially from sports stars, saying alone but together, right? But y'all know what I'm talking about, the commercials, alone but together.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together. Even though we were all home on our couches, we're all in this together. We're all scared of the future. And we're all a little bit angry because we've been torn apart from our friends and family. Okay. Same thing with this, with the British versus the Americans, American colonists. The American colonists were even angrier at King George because he sent more British soldiers into the colonies. So the Americans were angrier, and that brought them together even more. So King George making a matter brought the colonies more together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. On July 1st, 1776, the Continental Congress met, and by July 4th had written and adopted the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration was the first formal statement by the people to the British Parliament asserting their right to choose their own government. So the Declaration was written before the Revolutionary War, and it's a set of words saying we have the right to be our own country. Okay, so look at that next thing. Based on source 4, what did the American colonists accomplish by fighting with the British? Okay. Maya, so you're going to write source 4 and then answer the question. has come in. What did the American colonists accomplish by fighting with the British?
I wish that the game based on the past. I think it's other than good with other things.
You said a headband?
Like the game headband.
Game headband?
Yeah, there's adult version,
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
but the adult version has what kind of has what we're learning here. So this
Gotcha.
this is more like
Gotcha. Unfortunately, they give us so much material to learn that we don't have time to slow down and do fun activities with any of this. Most years, there's 4 units to social studies, so you can slow down and breathe. 4th grade, you have 6 units. And unit 3 has 6 parts to it. That is crazy long. 9th grade for me was world geography, and it was a lot. And I ended up doing so well with it because it was just straight memorization that I represented the whole Caddo Parish. I went to Northwestern. Okay, so what we've been learning about, the battles of Lexington and Concord, the standard, what we're trying to get out of the lesson is to draw conclusions about the relationships of significant events in history of the United States in expanding democracy. So growing our country, the ideals that led to freedom of our country. Make sense? That's the overall overarching goal to learning the battles of Lexington and Concord. That's the purpose for us learning. Okay. So we just finished up with that lesson. So if you're finished, hit next. We've already finished up with worksheet 2. So hit next again. That's going to bring us to the Declaration of Independence preamble, which is actually this page in your packet. We're going to go through it together. Okay. Some of you have a color version of it. Some of you have a black and white version of it. Okay. Preamble. Pre means before, amble means to walk. So literally, it means before you walk through the declaration. It's the words before the declaration. Okay. Well, let's read what the preamble says. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Okay, so unalienable means you can't take them away. That among these are life, so every man is born with the right to his life, the right to liberty, which is freedom, and the right to pursue happiness, not the right to be happy, but to pursue happiness, to do things to try to make themselves happy, not to always be happy. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers. What I mean by just powers is fair powers, from the consent of the governed. So the government gets their power from our permission. They don't just rule with absolute control over us. You okay, Sayuna? Need to go home? You tired? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive, and there it cuts off. Isn't that wonderful? What it's saying is when a government becomes destructive, oh, here's the rest of it. Because it cut off on our image. Okay, so I'm going to stop share on this one and I'm going to go to this where the whole image is. And it's not sharing screen because it's being weird. Wonderful. I know you don't. That's why I'm sharing my screen, live image. Share. Share screen, stop share. This is being this wonderful, quirky self. Okay, there we go. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter, to change, or abolish it, to get rid of the government. When the government oversteps its bounds, the people have the right and the responsibility to overthrow the government. That's in the preamble. You see that, right? That's before the Declaration. You know that Second Amendment about the right to bear arms, which means, what do arms mean again? Guns. That Second Amendment about having guns, how can you get rid of your own government if you don't have defense to do so? Can you get rid of your government? You can't. That's why the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, right to have guns. The preamble says we have the rights and the responsibility, right there in yellow, to alter or abolish it. Talk about the government. Those are the words before our Declaration, guys. Did anybody ever know that before? Pretty crazy, right? All right, so on your paper where it says Preamble, Declaration of Independence, you may use, I would say marker, but that would bleed through. If you have a pen, you can use that. You can use colored pencil. You can use a crayon. You're going to need 3 colors: orange, green, and yellow. Orange, green, and yellow. I need my friends quiet though. Orange, green, and yellow. Guys, how is it you don't have colored pencils by now? I gave everybody, Sky, where's the bag? You gave it back to me the other day, right?
Green.
I'm gonna go get them.
I know the rest of my students, I gave y'all bags. I don't know what you do with them.
Orange and white.
Green, orange, and yellow.
Easy.
All right, guys, get them and go sit. You're not over there marrying the colored pencils. Get them and sit. Green, orange, yellow. Not ID red. Mickey? Thank you. Finally, a yellow drawing. All right, everybody have them? Stop playing with that. Mila hasn't used a twistable yet, but I'm sure she can learn how. Probably eat it. Poor dog, she tries to chew on her ear already. All right, everybody ready? Okay, so what we're gonna do is underline these words. We hold these. What is it, Megan?
I got my highlight.
Okay, awesome. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if we were to put these in less fancy terms, how can we rewrite that? Someone help me out. Ha ha, Logan. I hear feet dancing and I hear desks moving, but I don't hear an answer. Come on, guys. What does self-evident mean? Nobody knows?
No.
Obvious. Self-evident just means obvious. I should use fancier terms then. When it says all men are created equal, it means literally that. It doesn't say women, does it? Women didn't get their rights until around 1929.
Why?
Lots of explanations on that one. So taking those first two phrases. Someone come on. Anybody? Anybody? The first two bits. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Take out that word self-evident and say obvious. Okay, so these things are obvious. That okay, that all men are equal. What's another word for creator? Who do you think they're talking about by the people who made this? Think about the men who wrote this. Who do you think they're saying? Look that they capitalize the word creator. Who would creator be?
No, not that.
It would not be a person. There. Okay. So we hold these things to be obvious that all men are created equal by whom? By God. With rights that can't be taken away. And these rights are the right to life. What's the second one? Liberty is another word for freedom. And to pursue happiness. You don't have the right to be happy all day, but you have the right to pursue what makes you happy. Make sense? Okay, so let's write that over here. We hold this to be obvious, or we considered obvious. It's obvious that all men are created equal by whom? By God. With certain rights.
Can you share that side of the page, please?
Which can't be taken away. Those rights include life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, I'm going to kind of box this in with orange to show that this is the part in orange, okay? Does that make sense, guys? I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Is that better? Now, from what I've studied, the men, many of the men who wrote the Declaration of Independence were deists. So it's arguable whether they believed in God or if they truly called him the creator. But since that time, people have always just said, to make it easy, just go with the word God. Okay, so just trying to clarify that, okay? So it's arguable whether they would be considered Christians or deists, whether they're the same. I don't know. I do know that these writers of it did go to church, but beyond that, I don't understand the rest of it. Don't know if anybody's ever noticed over here, if you finished writing all that yet.
Yeah.
But this sign I have, continent, country, state, parish, city, the continent we're in, what continent do we live in? Over here next to my big,
North America.
we live in North America. What country are we in? No, what country are we in?
America.
Not America,
North America.
United States. What state are we in?
Louisiana.
Louisiana. What parish are we in?
Canada.
Caddo. What city are we in right now? Keithville. We're in Keithville. I live in Shreveport, but we're in Shreveport. Keithville. All right. So. Okay. So these are measuring spoons. This would fit in here, this would fit in here, this would fit in here, and that would fit there. This is the smallest, continent is the largest. You see that, right? Got it? And here's the other thing. I put a hidden message in this. See the red letters? Spells out 2 words. Not try. Y'all hear me say this quite a bit. The only way you fail in my class is to it's an extra. I ran out of blue for these. I made that years ago. Made 2 different ones. My first one collapsed. That one has you know the paint sticks out at Home Depot? The paint stirring sticks. So those are the big paint stirring sticks. There's 2 of them. And those measuring cups are actually, they each have 2 holes drilled in them, and they're wired to 2 big paint stir sticks in the back. Because first one like that, and the poster kept collapsing on itself. And then that's hot glued to the wall. And the reason why America is not the right word is it's actually North America and South America, right?
Mhm.
And there's a whole bunch of countries within North America and South America.
I say America.
Yeah, the Americas. And one day soon, we're going to have to show Skyuna how my room is actually one big piece of art that glows, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of glowy in here.
Yeah.
Art's my thing. Art and science. I've got a big old hair in my eyes. So I'm gonna mess up.
And science is the only kind of science and that kind of thing.
Well, my poor Colby is too much like me. Science and art are his things too, but genetically he's also too much like me. All right, let's go on to the next part. Green is next. Oh, all right, so consent for the governed. Green starts with that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Oh, no, you cannot, can you? Makes it a little difficult. All right. So green, I know it looks yellow, but it's green. It's Elmo being weird again. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Or underline it as green. I know it's weird. It's my Elmo. I swear my yard is going to be swimming in this water. My dog's going to go outside and come in covered in brown. Aussies like to get wet, so she's going to come in all muddy. What? My husband. My husband. The goat jumped in my husband's arms. My husband's very strong. All right. Has everybody underlined or highlighted, or however you want to do it, the green? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Back then it was men that led it. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Believe it or not, there are still governments in parts of the world that are run by men. All right. So anybody want to try deciphering that into American English? Logan. Are your brothers as sarcastic as you?
No.
No. Which one?
Middle.
That's how it was in my family too. My middle is my child one. Colby's my wild child. Or he was. He's not now. All right. So what my teacher version says is government protects the rights of men. So governments secure these rights and they get their powers from the people. So they're elected by the people and they get their powers from the people. Okay. That would be why so many people have been very upset with our government that just went out. Because he very much seemed like he was taking more power than people wanted to give him. Because people, adults, not children, adults elect their government, and that government is supposed to get their power and do the things that the common people want them to do. The government is not supposed to go against what the people want them to do. Make sense? They're not supposed to run them up and do whatever they darn well want.
Okay.
That tends to make people pretty darn upset. All right. So government. I'm going to abbreviate this. I'm going to take a guess if you're okay with that. Government, G-O-V''T, protects. G-O-V''T is short for government. Protects the rights. And back then they meant men. Yes. I know. Women did not get rights until far later. Yep. And all right, Mickey. Thank you. And is elected. Rights of men. And is elected by and gets its, that's a T there, its powers from the people of the country. Much better, right? And I'm going to box this in with green. Again, it doesn't look green because Elmo's weird. And I don't just mean the little red monster on Sesame Street that my granddaughter loves. That is green. Elmo's World.
What?
Yes, I've been subjected to that torture because Mila loves it. Elmo's World is a way to torture grandparents. And a way to make 18-month-olds very happy. Yes. Yes, it is. It is absolutely crazy. All right, my friends, stop talking, please. Mr. Andrews. As you get older, especially when you hit high school, you will read books, depending on who your teachers are, that discuss governments of other countries. And you will start to see how governments affect the day-to-day lives of citizens. I'm reading one right now that talks about China and Japan and the governments, how it affected everyday people's lives. And it very much makes me appreciate America. Even in this turbulent time, it very much makes me appreciate America. The countries that we've been to, that we traveled to, I've been to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, France, and Finland. Their countries' governments are set up very different from the United States. But coming home, especially after going to Nicaragua, very much made us appreciate the United States. And seeing the way people would live made us appreciate what we have here. So I always tell my students, first of all, I would love to see you guys when you're older. If you see one of your teachers, when you are older out in public and you recognize your teacher, please go up and speak to them. I'm going to show you an example. See that? That was last night. That's the child I taught 6 years ago. He remembered me, chased me through the store. That was last night. That's Amari on Washington. I taught him 6 years ago. I hear Miss Vandiver, Miss Vandiver. He looked vaguely familiar with a mask on. It's hard to recognize people, y'all. And he looks different. I taught him 4th grade 6 years ago. He rides a bus an hour and a half each way every day to school to Captain Shreve now. He still lives in Keithville. He goes to Captain Shreve. He goes to a magnet school now. He's in the magnet program right there. And he works at Kroger over there on Uri Drive. That boy is working hard. That made me so happy and proud to see him and hear this. And then I showed him pictures of Miss Ramitas and Miss Daniels, because he had Miss Daniels in 8th grade. He had Miss Ramitas when he had me 6 years ago. And Miss Ramitas goes, oh, she was so happy seeing that picture. I would love to go to his graduation. Okay, when I say I teach you guys and you're my family, I mean it. Okay. The other thing, anyone, I remember my kids, and my husband even remembered them, because this is the first year we've not had field trips, but normally my husband chaperones all our field trips. because we don't have very many male teachers, do we? When you go on field trips, you need a male to go with you. That way you have somebody to help you with restroom breaks and just another adult. So my husband always chaperones our field trips. All my students always get to know a husband every year. So my husband remembered Marion too. He's like, you look familiar. And Marion goes, yeah, you do too. And we had seen him at Applebee's when I taught him here too, because we always have fundraisers too. So we've gone to Marion's fundraisers. Your government affects your life in more ways than you realize, guys. The everyday little things. You don't realize how much it affects you. And I encourage my students, if you have the ability when you're older, a senior trip, or when you're a young adult, if you have the opportunity, travel outside the country. It will make you appreciate what you have here. Even if it's to stay in a hostel and something, hostels aren't real fancy, y'all, but it'll make it when you come home, you appreciate what we have here. It will. All right, let's finish with this. All right, so this, we don't have all of it yellow, and I don't know if this is even going to show. Oh, it does. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive, we're going to finish this off by writing it. Of these ends, it is the, and I'm going to drop down here so it's easier to see this. And look, they capitalized it. It's not me doing that, but this is how it's written in the preamble. Right of the, and they capitalized people. People to alter, which means to change, or to abolish, which means get rid of. Abolish it. It means government. And to institute, which means to start or create new, and they capitalize this too, government. Then I'm underlining it in yellow. It's not that much. So the words that come before our declaration, the preamble, which literally means before you walk, kind of like a baby learning how to crawl before they walk, say that if our government does not follow its own rules, the people in this country have the right and the responsibility to create a new government. Pretty crazy that our forefathers in 1776 fought ahead, that if in the future, sometime in our country's time, if a government became too powerful and overran their citizens, the citizens need to get rid of the government and create their own new government. That's a pretty crazy idea. Okay, so we're going to write over here on the other side, and I'll shift this in a moment, okay? If the government, and I'm going to abbreviate this, if the GOV'(T) has too much power, I know, I'm going to move it in a moment. I'm making sure everybody has this part written. You got it all straight? Okay. If the government has too much power, it can be overturned by the people. Pretty radical idea. What is it? Logan, what'd you say? Well, the preamble is written, even though it's got fancy words, it has a lot of meaning to it. This time I'm not erasing it to reset for each class. I'm just going to cover up each part. My husband was irritated because he was tired. He just wanted to go home. I do not want to go to Kroger. We came out. I looked at my husband. I said, wasn't that trip to Kroger worth it? He goes, I'm not answering.
And then Anthony and Megan.
Oh my goodness. That was quite a trip. That was quite a trip.
All of us were
Well, this is the Kroger in Erie. This is a long way from my house and a long way from his house. All right. Has everybody got all this down? Is anybody still writing? Raise your paw if you're still writing. Okay. You got 1 more minute. Ouch. All right. Mickey. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the Declaration of Independence. I don't know if we'll finish it today. If not, we will finish it Monday, and that's fine. Yes, ma'am. I do. Yes, ma'am. Kayla was like, wow, they're calling down about 2 minutes early. All right, everybody good? Okay. Turn your page. It's actually to the other side of that page. We're going to look at the actual Declaration of Independence. We've been looking at the preamble, the crawl before the walk. If that was a crawl, now we're getting to the walk part, the actual declaration.
I don't like the walk.
Oh, well. Okay, so I'm going to stop share on this. Mickey? No. Mickey? Thank you. There's no macaroni thing. None of that. All right, stop the talking. Okay, this is the page we're on. It's not particularly large. I'm going to stop share on this page, Megan, and go to the image mate. Okay. Okay. So here's a small version of the declaration. when we come back from RTI, I'm going to have on the board a copy of the declaration. I have one folded up. Back from enrichment, sorry. Grievance listed in the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration, have a seat. Have a seat. I'm missing class time because you're playing. The Declaration, guys, is actually a set of grievances, a set of, y'all know what gripes are?
Yeah.
Complaints. It's a set of complaints that the colonists have to King George. You did all these things wrong and we're mad about it. These are all our complaints. So we're going to go through the complaints that they have listed here, and we're going to interpret what they mean. Okay? Make sense? It's the complaints in the Declaration that directly lead to our Bill of Rights. Okay? That's what formed the backbone of our government. The things that the British did to us, our country, that was wrong, led to our government. So one of the grievances for imposing taxes on us without our consent. What does that mean? Did not what? Okay. All right. Do not tax us. And I'm going to put WO, that means without our permission. Okay, because we all know what permission means, right? For abolishing the free system of English laws, so as to render it at once an example and a fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Absolute rule, I'll give you a hint, means absolute power. So what do you think that meant? Who do you think they were saying had absolute power? The king. So the king had what? Absolute power, meaning he had complete power over what? Yes, over the colonies. The next one. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing his invasions on the rights of the people. What do you think that means? They're talking about the king. What do you think that means? It's okay to be wrong. I just want someone to try. Come on, guys. Maya, what do you think it means? No, but good try. That'll be on a different one. This one's a confusing one to me. That sounds like it because it says his invasion, right? According to my document here, it says colonists are not allowed to speak out or question the king. He didn't allow them to represent their houses, their opinions.
He didn't allow them to speak out. Speaking out being their right. He didn't allow them to speak out. In other words, he didn't allow them to question him. Okay, that's a really confusing one. All right. So colonists aren't, and remember, we're putting this in current tense and present tense because that's how it's written here. But understand that we are talking about something from, a couple hundred years ago. All right. So colonists aren't allowed to speak out or question the king. He ended up losing his mind and dying of disease, including mental disease. And here's the next one that I mentioned yesterday. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. What does that mean? What does it mean to quarter troops? What does it mean to quarter troops? If I picture my son on the board. Adrian happens to be a large soldier. He's 6'2". What does it mean to quarter troops? Quarter. Quarter. I don't even quarter that soldier anymore. He has his own quarters. What does it mean, Aaliyah? What? Tax? Protect how? What does it mean to quarter? There you go. Quartering large bodies. Colonists' homes. They had to provide them homes. Colonists were forced to house soldiers. In their own homes. Well, we have two little parts. We're going to finish those up Monday, okay? All right. Leave your work on your desk, and I'm going to try to grade it during your enrichment. Okay. Leave your papers open to that page. Did you label yesterday's work? That's my friend. Is your art bag? Is it art today or no?
No,
PE. All right. All right.
Yesterday was hard.
Okay. Line up for PE, my friend.